Hey guys, we have a huge episode for you with a full report including new spoilers of upcoming G.I. Joe Classified figures and a new vehicle, what to expect later this month, and new secrets, insight, and updates from the G.I. Joe Classified team. First up, Hasbro's confirmed a G.I. Joe Classified live stream later this month, and it will be loaded with a ton of new reveals. As always, we'll provide full coverage right here on Viper Island. As for what to expect later this month, the February 2024 event might actually shed some light on what's in store for us. During last year's live stream, there were two name-only reveals of Saw Viper and Dial Tone, digital renders of Retro Beachhead, Retro Eel, Retro Snow Serpent, the Cobra Ferret and Ferret Scout, the Action Pilot, and the Action Marine, and they also had 8 pre-orders. These included Doc, Jinx, Dreadnought Torch, the Night Creeper, Nagahide and his pets, the Hiss Techno Viper and HMS, Mad Marauders Sergeant Slaughter, and the Mad Marauders 2-pack of Lowlight and Spirit. So based on what we know is coming, and what Hasbro has done in past years, this is what we expect during the live stream later this month. New announcements of Legacy Collection figures, and possibly retro cardback figures like the Green Shirt Trooper, Retro Cobra Bat, and more. We're also expecting digital renders of Snake Eyes version 4, Sci-Fi, Monkey Wrench, Night Viper, and possibly more. Expected pre-orders include Blowtorch, Footloose, Frag Viper, Darklon, Law & Order, the Cobra Claw and Pilot, and the Slice and Dice 2-pack. And remember, according to Lenny from the G.I. Joe team, there's a surprise underneath the helmet of Frag Viper. We believe there's a droid or cyborg head underneath that helmet. We'll have to wait and see. According to Lenny, the surprise will explain how a Frag Viper is able to carry a large amount of heavy grenades and ammo, and that it's not human-like. Future 2025 pre-orders for later this year include the following: the Legacy Firefighter, the Mass Device Radioactive Snake Eyes and Polar Bear, then the Mass Device Divers 2-pack, and we expect this to come out during the Target Summer Geek Out. And the same thing for the Mass Device Breaker. Then there's also another Mass Device 2-pack coming to Target later this year. As for what's not been revealed just yet by Hasbro, there's the Walmart exclusive Crystal Ball, as well as the unannounced retro card G.I. Joe Green Shirt Trooper and the Retro Cobra Bat. Recently, a list of figures has been passed around as a possible leak of new upcoming figures. This includes Globulus, Pythona, the Royal Guard, Mainframe, Muskrat, Iceberg, Airtight, Lifeline, Hydro Viper, Cyber Viper, Psych-Out, Annihilator, Fast Draw, and Firefly. Folks, this is nothing more than just a wish list. Feel free to disregard and ignore. And then moving forward, let's clear this up once and for all. There's been chatter about the Snowcat and Dreadnought Thunder Machine being potential HasLabs. Not only is this old news being recycled, but it's also being presented as new information. And that's just not true. This rumor's been floating around since October, and we haven't talked about it for good reason. As we've covered multiple times, Lenny and Emily from the G.I. Joe team have been very clear that the Snowcat and Thunder Machine are not big enough for HasLab treatment. Folks, they've literally gone out of their way multiple times to make this clear, and they've also specified that when these vehicles do hit the G.I. Joe Classified line, they'll be available at retail, just like the VAMP and Cobra Stinger. And here's the thing, they haven't said this just once, they've said it over and over again. So until we hear otherwise from Hasbro, that's the reality, not what you hear from other people. As always, be skeptical of rumors, especially when they directly contradict what the team behind the line has repeatedly confirmed. For context, the Snowcat is not much bigger than the VAMP, and you're seeing that on the screen right here, and there's no reason to believe that that will change. While the G.I. Joe Classified line did begin with a different twist on things, the Hasbro team quickly realized that was not what the audience wanted, and they pivoted to more of a vintage inspiration. And the Hasbro team has already admitted that straying too far from the classic designs was a misstep. Bottom line, these vehicles are not going to be HasLab projects. When they join Classified, they're going to look very similar to the way that they did back in the 80s. This is exactly the kind of situation where it pays to listen to Hasbro and tune out the noise. And since some of you have been asking, let's address another rumor. The claim that there won't be a G.I. Joe HasLab in 2025. Yes, this is something that some people are actually thinking is true. It's nothing more than pure speculation with zero evidence to back it up. Hasbro hasn't said a word about skipping a HasLab. In fact, G.I. Joe Classified HasLabs have been incredibly successful, and there's no logical reason for Hasbro to suddenly stop making them. In fact, Lenny from the G.I. Joe team himself has pointed out that the HasLab success fuels even more figures, vehicles, and playsets for the rest of the Classified line. One could even make the argument that the HasLab projects are now the driving force behind the line. The Hasbro team regularly debunks false rumors, and when it comes to the future of this line, it makes sense to trust the people actually running the show. Stick around, we've got plenty of fresh insights and upcoming figure details coming up in this episode. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. Next, folks, we've got to talk. With new leaks and spoilers dropping every few weeks, there's something that we've been holding on to that Hasbro probably isn't ready for you to know just yet. But let's talk about it. There are multiple unannounced 2-packs set to drop later this year, ones that haven't been named so far. And here's what we've learned. There'll be one more Target exclusive 2-pack, this one will be Mass Device themed, and no, this is not the Divers 2-pack, this is something new. Then there'll be not one, but 2 more 2-packs on the way, and they'll be for the Walmart exclusive line. They'll be tied to Night Force and the Dark Energon theme. And then there'll be one 2-pack for Hasbro Pulse. And here's where things get interesting. I hope you're ready, because it's time to break some news. According to what we've been told, the Hasbro Pulse exclusive 2-pack is none other than Sergeant Slaughter and Mercer. We've been telling you that another Sergeant Slaughter was coming to Classified, and it looks like this is the one. But here's where it gets a little strange. Mercer is dropping solo without Taurus and Red Dog. What's up with that? No word yet on when or if they'll be making it to the Classified line, but they'll likely be saved for down the road. For those keeping score, the Renegades are some of the most highly requested figures in the Classified series. These 3 went from outcasts to full-fledged Joes, and their rough-and-tumble vibe has made them fan favorites for decades. Collectors have been waiting for a proper set, so when it comes to this partial set, yeah, it's got us scratching our heads too. But it does make sense to have Sergeant Slaughter and Mercer paired up just with their connection from G.I. Joe the movie. And as a big fan of Mercer, I'm not going to complain whenever we do get him, in whatever fashion that is, and whether it's in a solo pack, or a 2-pack, or even a 3-pack. Now let's hear it from you. How do you feel about Sergeant Slaughter and Mercer as a 2-pack? And what's your take on it being locked behind an exclusive paywall with Hasbro Pulse? Right now, all signs point to this being a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, but that's just speculation on my part for now. We'll keep you posted as we learn more. Stay tuned right here to Viper Island. Next, we're not done with the spoilers, we've got another one right here. We've received new intel about unannounced G.I. Joe Classified figures from the same person who gave us an early heads up about the Iron Grenadiers, the Iron Grenadier Bat, Metalhead, Heavy Duty, and Xandar coming to Classified. We broke the news on all of those, and each one checked out. In fact, right after we announced most of those, Hasbro made a point of announcing them shortly thereafter. Based on the information we've been given, we can officially announce that the following figure is currently in the G.I. Joe Classified pipeline for later this year, in 2025. It's Flash. Most of Flash's accessories have recently been made for other figures. This includes Tripwire's body, Retro Duke's helmet, Glenda's laser rifle, and Glenda's backpack. Flash will be announced for G.I. Joe Classified very soon, and he will join the line later this year. Stay locked into Viper Island for more breaking news and updates throughout 2025. Next. Folks, I hope you're buckled in. I did say at the top that this episode was loaded with new spoilers. We know there are still some unannounced vehicles coming in 2025, and one of them could be the G.I. Joe MMS. With the VAMP already in the lineup and the Awe Striker scheduled for later this year, now is the perfect time for Hasbro to roll out the MMS. This could be a simple repaint of the Cobra HMS, designed to pair with the Hiss Tank and Cobra Stinger as a towable item. Quick side note, the Awe Striker is going to be roughly the same size as the VAMP, which means it should be able to tow other gear like the MMS. We'll have to wait and see. Now let's talk about another mystery vehicle coming later this year. It's red, it's priced around $150 US, and before you can say Dreadnought Thunder Machine, I can already tell you it's not that. So, what could it be? First, let's talk about some red vehicles that don't fit the bill. And I'm sorry to disappoint, but we're going to talk about the Cobra Moray first. This is simply too big for retail, and Lenny from the G.I. Joe team has previously said that the Cobra Moray would have to be a HasLab project, so we're going to eliminate it from consideration for this vehicle. Then there's the Cobra Pogo and Battle Armor Cobra Commander. As much as I would love to get this set, and still do, this would still be too small for a $150 price tag unless they really make this deluxe. Now it's possible to do that, but we have no indication that Hasbro is going to do that. So we'll keep it in mind in the back of our heads, but for now we'll move on. There's also the Cobra Firebat. Again, not large enough to justify the $150 cost. The Cobra Stiletto and the Star Viper, once again,
too small.
When we look at the Cobra Piranha, same problem.
Too small.
Not big enough to justify the cost. Then there's Destro's Dominator. With the rollout of the Iron Grenadiers as a sub-team, this should be something that we are considering. However, this would also require an all-new sculpt, which would add to the cost. It would also be very wide, and it might not have a big enough collector base. So while there would be some demand, the size and the fact that this would have to be built from scratch and not rely on other existing parts and pieces, that eliminates this from consideration. What we expect is as follows. The Crimson Hiss Tank. A red Hiss Tank priced at $150 US just makes too much sense. And here's why. The HasLab Hiss Tank mold was already developed a few years ago, meaning Hasbro can now repaint it and maximize their return. A smart business move. If this happens, this vehicle is going to be a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, just like the VAMP and Cobra Ferret. As for what would change, well, first, there will be no LED lighting, and that immediately cuts some of the costs down. There would also be no extra parts and add-ons like the HasLab version included. It will only come with one driver, not 4 figures. This would help keep a Crimson Hiss Tank as a streamlined retail release at an affordable price point. For collectors who love to customize, the base Hiss Tank mold is still there, so if you're skilled enough, you should be able to add your own lighting kit if you want to. And that's going to create even more appeal to this, but of course, this is going to have huge demand. But now it's your turn. How would you feel about a Crimson Hiss Tank? Would you be down for this? Are you ready for a Hiss Tank repaint? Or do you feel a different red vehicle would make more sense? If so, which vehicle do you think this will be? And tell us why you think this would make more sense than a Crimson Hiss Tank which already has an existing mold. Sound off in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts on this. I'm personally excited for a Crimson Hiss Tank, and regardless of the driver, this would be an automatic purchase and a must-own. Especially knowing that we could combine this with all the members of the Crimson Guard, including the Viper, the Bat, the Crimson Strike team of Baroness, Tomax and Zaymot, the Crimson Guard, the Retro Crimson Guard, and it also opens the door for a lot of exciting repaints. Yes, we're actually talking about getting excited about repaints. Who wouldn't want to see a Crimson version of Major Bludd, or a Crimson version of Cobra Commander? We all know that at some point down the line, it will join Classified. It's just a matter of when. Adding a Crimson Hiss Tank to Classified only creates more demand for this sub-team, which seems to have lost a lot of momentum over the last year or so. So it would breathe life into a lot of new repaints that otherwise might not draw that much interest. So let us know how you feel in the comments below. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. Next, courtesy of JCon, we have images of Crystal Ball's Hypno Shield. This has a cover attachment with a Skull and Snakes design. There are no paint apps on this yet, so I can't wait to see the finished product and when that's removed. Behind it is a lenticular image of the same Skull and Snakes design. This type of lenticular sticker is such an 80s callback. The image changes as you move it. And now let's talk about the figure itself and what the G.I. Joe Classified team had to say about it. Tony called it a surprising update which pays homage to the character's original wackiness, but he said it's a more aggressive take on Crystal Ball. It has an edge. Lenny said that Crystal Ball is a hypnotist, but they wanted to play into the idea of what you can do with hypnotism if you're Cobra. He asked out loud, what are you going to make people see, and how are you going to use that to your advantage? The hypnotism is more to mess with your brain and how you see the world around you. We believe that Crystal Ball's eyes will be red. Next, let's jump over to the Mass Device and Target exclusives. Target's longtime Tiger Force and Python Patrol reign is winding down. The new theme? Sunbow-inspired figures straight from the animated series. This opens up a fresh lane for Hasbro. Classified mainline will be reserved for modernized designs with muted tones. The retro cardback line is reserved for vintage-inspired looks with brighter colors. And the Target exclusives will now be leaning into Sunbow, kicking off with the Mass Device figures. Most of the Mass Device tie-ins will be Target exclusives, and we expect most will be saved for Target Geek Out events later this year. Based on what's happening, what do you think is the most logical next move for Hasbro? All signs point to Hasbro dropping a full-scale Mass Device in the Classified series. But here's the thing, there's no confirmation yet. And honestly, would Hasbro even go that far? Is there enough demand to justify Hasbro making a Mass Device? If they are, keeping it under wraps until later would be a huge misstep and a giant miscalculation in what their audience is interested in. Why? It's simple. Collectors will need to track down every tie-in figure to assemble the complete Mass Device with all of the elements. And that's not something you want to drop on people last minute. If there is a Mass Device on the way, Hasbro needs to announce this as soon as possible. Not doing so will only make collectors feel blindsided after the fact. And then how about this? Will we see a Mass Device as a HasLab? Some are speculating that a Mass Device could be this year's G.I. Joe HasLab project. Let's shut that down right now. Unlike the Hiss Tank, Dragonfly, or Cobra Rattler, the Mass Device is not an iconic vehicle. It's literally a big sci-fi machine inside of a box. No amount of sculpting or detail will generate the same hype as a popular vehicle. And let's be real, Hasbro is in full-on profit mode right now. They're chasing surefire hits, not niche deep cuts. A Mass Device won't hit HasLab numbers because, well, it's just not a dream project. And there are many other obvious reasons as well, starting with the size. It would be huge. Too big to even be a centerpiece. Also, 2025 is a G.I. Joe year. Cobra had a HasLab last year, and Hasbro is alternating every year between Cobra and Joe. So again, rule out any rumors of a Mass Device being the HasLab. That would be a complete and epic failure. Next, let's jump over to more insight from Hasbro's G.I. Joe team. Lenny says that when designing a new character for Classified, they always start by looking at the original figure. They consider other things as well, like the comics and the Sunbow cartoon series, but ultimately, it's all about the figure. As mentioned at the top of this episode, Hasbro learned their lesson. For better or worse, most of the G.I. Joe Classified audience want 6-inch versions of the figures they grew up with and fell in love with back in the 80s. And this is why Lenny says that they always start by looking at the original figure. And based on the immense popularity of the G.I. Joe Classified series, I would argue that Hasbro's pivot to vintage-inspired figures has been a huge success, and one that they're going to stay true to. Next, in our latest episode of the Fans First Talk Show, we debated the pros and cons of the latest G.I. Joe Classified reveals, and things got heated when we discussed Darklon and the Mass Device Divers 2-pack. So far it seems like most are on Team Dex and agree with his take on Hasbro. Together we both called out Hasbro, and if you haven't already, be sure to check out our latest episode and find out what everyone is buzzing about. And then next, it's one of my all-time favorites, Darklon. Now some people are already out of G.I. Joe by the time this guy came along. One of the last G.I. Joe O-ring figures that I remember getting. But he doesn't come with his Evader vehicle. I totally understand why he didn't. It's not an iconic vehicle. It's just not necessary, I think. Hasbro's putting their efforts into things that people actually want, like the Awe Striker, and I would rather have a Polar Battle Bear, the Snowmobile, as opposed to an Evader.
And I would prefer they didn't make this figure. This figure looks terrible.
Oh, come on.
I don't care if you like it or not. It looks terrible. It does not look good at all. He has a laser rifle, one sword, and a knife. It does not look good at all.
Why? I mean, why do you think that? The sculpting on the helmet.
He does not look like...
Wow.
He looks like he's from Tiger Force, but he's supposed to be Cobra. I don't know where this guy's supposed to be fitting in. Don't know what he's helping with. He's like the guy that just sits there and does nothing and takes all the credit. It does not look like he could do a thing.
Well, people have been asking those questions since this first came out in 1989, so... It is what it is, but we've got a brand new head sculpt off to the side here. This silver and black one. It's got Celtic designs and engravings all over it. It's got a metal tongue sticking out. There are vampire fangs there if you look closer. Now, we could call them Cobra fangs, but in this case, look at those. Those are vampire fangs. We've already got Crystal Ball coming out with vampire fangs himself. Now we've got Darklon's mask with some fangs. What are we doing here? Where are we going with G.I. Joe Classified? I'm not criticizing.
I don't know, but it looks like we're going downhill with this figure.
Oh my god. Alright, as a big fan of Darklon, I don't want to hear any of this. His helmet that's on the figure right now, I think that's a mask, because you can see right around the eyes when you really zoom in, there's a little bit of darkness, a little shadow. So I think that that helmet probably pops off. There's a new head sculpt underneath. And again, as a big fan of Darklon, this helmet is what this guy's all about. Not the greatest, like, he's not eye candy, okay? The colors are clashing. This is how it came out in 1989. If Hasbro had just given us like a blue one or something like that, people would be wondering, what in the world? Just give us what we got in 1989.
Just make him all black. He'd actually look cool all black, not having these green little tiger stripes on the top and then some like maroon and brown, like super light brown pants. It looks like he just went to a thrift store and bought whatever was the cheapest possible. It looks like he just has a huge rail gun beside him, like the ones that you just hold down for a while and then it shoots a big laser rifle, or like a big laser down the middle. They do nothing pretty much.
How would you know?
Fortnite.
It all comes down to Fortnite, guys. I like the weapon just because that goes with Darklon. It's his signature weapon. It's got to be made up, right? Like, I'm not big into all this sort of stuff, but it looks like it's got some sort of a high compression tank underneath or something, and it's pretty cool, I think.
I don't get what it's supposed to be.
I don't know either. I don't think anyone has that answer.
The barrel is way too big on the gun. You do not need a barrel that is bigger than the scope.
This is part of the sci-fi world of G.I. Joe, where we have to put our, logic off to the side sometimes and just accept what they give us. But overall, let's get to the ratings.
How are you supposed to reload the gun?
These are questions that we'll never have answers to, Dex. We just have to accept that this is just the way Darklon is.
He's got bullets on his legs, but it looks like he has an air gun and then a flare gun.
Yeah.
What are those bullets for?
I'm not really sure. Those cartridges, it's not clear that they go with his weapon, so I'm not sure exactly, but good question. Maybe there were more accessories that they didn't show, but I can't imagine that there are. This is part of the mainline wave.
Hopefully a second pair of pants. Those are not nice.
What about the sword? That's an awesome looking sword. It dates back to, I think, 500 BC. It's a Celtic sword.
It would have degraded by then.
I'm not saying it's originally there, but the design goes back to 500 BC. I think this is a great, look how big it is. It's over half the size of Darklon. That's a nice battle sword.
The sword looks pretty cool. For once, they actually put more than one color on a sword. It's not just all black, even though swords aren't black. It's finally now 2 different colors, where the handle isn't the same color as the blade. So that's nice.
We'll call that a win.
Oh, and there's a third color on there. There's a gem. Oh, and there's a gem on the blade, too, or on the tip.
It does look like that, yeah. Yeah, on the end and right at the hilt.
It looks like claws.
Yep, exactly. Oh, so there we go. Darklon has some nice sculpting and some hidden features. Look at that. It's a great figure. I didn't pick the colors, Dex.
Black, brown, maroon, green.
So maybe Hasbro should have come and asked you what would look good and what would appeal to the younger generation, because you're definitely not a fan of Darklon.
I say we go to the ratings now.
Sure, let's do that. What would you give him out of 10?
I'd give him a 2 out of 10 because the guns are pretty nice and the swords. The helmets and both of the head sculpts are really nice. They need to just make a repaint one of this, like a different line one where he's just all black and looks like a stealth one, because you're not going anywhere with that. You are going to be seen from a mile away.
Welcome to the world of G.I. Joe. Yeah, exactly. Repaint with darker tones, I would be down for that. But again, I'm a big Darklon fan. You can put him on the list with Road Pig, Law & Order, Mercer, guys like that. I will like every version that they ever produce.
I think the only way to fix this figure is by swapping out the head with Flynn's head, so it just looks amazing.
Yeah, we know that you're a big fan of the original Flint.
What would you rate it out of 10?
Well, higher than 2, that's for sure. I'll give this guy an 8 for now, but I'll probably bump it up once we receive him, because, it's going to be nostalgia bombs going off in my head at that moment. This guy looks great. I stand by it. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you like this Darklon? Which side of the fence are you on? Sound off in the comments and let us know how you feel about Darklon. And who's right here? Is it Dex or myself? We want to hear from the community and find out how you guys feel. And there you have it. You've made it to the end of this episode, and we really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. And we would love it even more if you take just 1 second of your time. Make sure that down below you are subscribed to the channel. We ask that you do, because that guarantees that we definitely get to see you back here again next time. Thanks for tuning into Viper Island, your one-stop shop for all things G.I. Joe. When there's relevant news, we'll be here to discuss all of it, together with you. Thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, have a great day, and yo Joe!